Hello, my name is Michael Liebman, and I'm a psychotherapist in the Phoenix area. And as part of my practice in psychotherapy, I've learned to utilize clinical hypnosis as a valuable tool in working with a variety of difficulties that people present me with. And in that, whether they're psychological issues that we're trying to help people with, or whether they're more medical or physical kinds of issues we're trying to help people with, I've found over the years that clinical hypnosis is a strong and effective way of trying to help people utilize their own resources in a way that enhances their health and well-being. As part of that, I have been volunteering for the last couple of years at the wellness community, doing a mind-body connection hypnosis program one evening, I think every other month. We usually get about 15 or 20 participants that come to those programs, and it's turned out to be something that's very, very meaningful for me, and many of the people have reported to me that it's been very beneficial to them as well. One of the difficulties for many people in the Arizona area is that they can't get into Phoenix on that Monday night for the mind-body program, and so the idea is to put that on video so that when you go to the wellness community's website, you can see the information that's being presented. This is a special kind of information because it's very experiential. And so in the program, we're dividing the program into two parts. The first part is going to be on the mind-body connection, kind of a biology 101 explanation of how the mind-body connection works. And why is that important? It's important for a number of reasons. The main reason is that it's my belief that when you really understand more about your own body, you're in a different kind of relationship with your body and your mind when you're trying to affect your own health. Understanding how your body works in these specific arenas can be very powerful in trying to make the changes or achieve the health outcomes that you're looking for. So in the presentation today, what we're going to do is a two-part program. The first part is going to be on the mind-body connection, and we have a PowerPoint on that to help you understand and see graphically some of the mechanisms of the mind-body connection, some of the parts of the mind-body connection, and we're going to try and do it in a way which is understandable to you. In the second part of the program, we're actually going to do some hypnosis exercises, and that's going to be probably the most important part of the program. And I might add that when we do these exercises, the intention we have in doing that is twofold. One part of it is we want you to see what that looks like. We have some volunteers here that have just so gracefully consented to come in and help us with this today. I really appreciate that. So you can see what that looks like when other people go through that experience, and we'll be talking to them a little later in the program about their experience. The other part of it that's really important is we would like to invite you to kind of go along with us and be a participant in the experience. And at home or wherever you are watching this presentation, feel free just to participate in the same way that the volunteers here are participating. That's the overview. There's one other thing I'd like to add. One of the reasons that volunteering at the wellness community is so important to me is that in my family, many people, that my mother, for example, my grandmother, my uncle, we've lost them all through cancer. In our family, and my family, if you're going to die, it's probably going to be through cancer. Also, many friends and other relatives have battled cancer and have come out well on the other side. So this is something I take personal interest in trying to do my part to help. So the first part of the program is going to be an explanation of the mind-body, and then we're going to make a few changes here, and then we're going to conduct some experiential activities that you can watch and hopefully enjoy. Okay? So let's start off. Right here, there's going to be a PowerPoint that you can watch that'll go along with my presentation. And the first slide just introduces the PowerPoint presentation. And the next slide introduces a part of the anatomy the brain anatomy that's very, very important, probably the critical part of the anatomy that we want to focus on in dealing with the mind-body connection. The cerebral cortex is the area, we'll show that in just a moment. As a matter of fact, let me just go ahead and go to the next slide, and I can come back. You have the cerebral cortex, that's that bumpy, round portion that's covering the whole brain there. And then underneath you have a system called the limbic system, and it has different parts. Let's go back to the last slide and pick it up from there. The cerebral cortex does interesting things. It has neural networks where one part of the cortex communicates with other parts of the cortex so that you're able to have these complex ideas, thoughts, and other things that go on in your brain and in your mind. One of the important things that the cortex does also is it communicates with a more primitive part of your brain called the limbic system. That part of your brain is very involved in emotion. That part of your brain is very involved in regulating all the systems of your body. And so that, in a way, is kind of the control center of the mind-body connection. The way this is supposed to look is the cerebral cortex gets some electrical activity, some neurons are stimulated in one way or another, and a message is sent into the limbic hypothalamic axis. And that is this slide just before. And that limbic hypothalamic axis is a regulator in some ways of both the all the nervous system, the endocrine system, and the immune system. Three very powerful systems in your health and in your emotional well-being. There's also a fourth system, which is your genetic system, which we're learning more and more that we can influence that part of your system in terms of what kind of gene expression you have regarding your own health and wellness. So let me move back to that slide. These different components, and you can certainly see this whenever you want to take more time to pay attention to it, all work in an integrated fashion. But there's one portion of that limbic brain called the hypothalamus, which is this little teeny area right in there, that is one of the most powerful organs in your body. It's kind of like the control center of the control center. And we're going to be talking a lot about how the hypothalamus operates. Here's another side view. And what we have here is the hypothalamus is the major output pathway of the limbic system. In other words, the limbic system metabolizes, operates, makes meaning out of things that are happening to you. And then it sends messages to the hypothalamus, which then sends messages out throughout the rest of the body. That's the transmission area. It integrates the sensory, perceptual, emotional, and cognitive functions of the mind with the biology of the body. Now, that's a mouthful, but think about that. The hypothalamus integrates the sensory, perceptual, emotional, and cognitive. That's a lot of stuff, and that stuff is going on all the time. And so this little area is getting messages from the limbic system initially through the cortex, and the functions and all these functions of the biology of the body, electrical impulses from the cortex are transduced into hormonal messenger molecules. What is transduced? This is a very important function. Transduction is the conversion of one kind of energy into another kind of energy. A transformer is one of the things we use in our regular language to talk about that. So, for example, you have electrical activity in the neurons that are operating. That electrical activity goes into the limbic system. It goes to the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus starts to regulate things using chemicals. So you're going from electrical energy, actually you're going from an idea, a feeling, like for example, let's say you're in a movie theater and you're watching a horror movie, you know it's just a movie, but for some reason when we watch those kind of movies, we can get so scared that we feel like we're really, have to be frightened. Well, that's a feeling or an idea. That one goes into your limbic system because that's where all the emotions operate. Then that processes that information in a variety of different ways that isn't important to go into right now, and then sends something to the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is divided into many different parts, and pretty soon what happens is that it gets your pituitary gland to send out a liquid into your system or hormone into your system that moves through your system and energizes different parts of your system. And that happens like that. It happens right away. And that activity is going on. And this is the core or the center of the mind-body activity, because it has to do with the mind, the conscious mind, influencing that in particular directions. And there's many ways to do that, and that's one of the things we're going to be talking about as we go along. The nervous system. Let's talk about the nervous system, because that's a pretty important part too. You have three parts to your nervous system. You have a central nervous system, a peripheral nervous system, and you also have an autonomic nervous system. The central nervous system is your brain and your spinal cord, the things that just are right down the center. This is the runway for everything. The autonomic nervous system, if you notice from the slide, most of the nerves that go to the autonomic nervous system go to different organs in your body. So when you have a queasy stomach because you're nervous, or your pupils are dilated because of something, or your hands are sweating, or you're nervous like I am giving this presentation, my mouth is getting a little dry. That's the autonomic nervous system kicking in. And so the autonomic nervous system, think of it as kind of the automatic nervous system. I think that would have been a better word. It's automatic because you have a feeling or a reaction, and all of a sudden this nervous system starts to impact all parts of your body. Well, if you've ever heard of the fight or flight reaction, that's the autonomic nervous system doing that. And that's one branch of the autonomic nervous system. It has two branches. One branch is called the sympathetic nervous system, and that's the fight, flight, or freeze part of your nervous system. When we feel stressed, it doesn't have to be a rhinoceros jumping out in front of our car. It could be just something getting nervous about doing a presentation today, and that can be stressful too. All these organs are affected by that. It all just starts happening, and some amazing things happen when that goes on, and that is when the sympathetic is activated, cortisol goes into your system, and that cortisol lowers the effectiveness of your immune system. It starts converting fat into sugars. It does all kinds of crazy things, all done with chemical messengers that tell the body to start doing this stuff because you're watching a movie that's scaring you. There's another part to that autonomic nervous system, and that's called the parasympathetic nervous system. And that's the part of your nervous system that heals you. Just like the part that gets stressed, this is the part that fixes what got stressed. But if you don't relax periodically, if you don't meditate or take some time out or sleep regularly, then the parasympathetic nervous system never gets its own opportunity to do its work. So in our busy culture today, stress is something we all go through quite a lot. And doing hypnosis or meditation or Tai Chi or just taking some time to lay down or sitting in the backyard and just being quiet for a while, those are things that recruit the parasympathetic nervous system. And when that's recruited, your immune system goes up. Your body starts to rebuild. You start to generate more health and wellness. And that's why this is really important. And again, that is regulated by that limbic system that we talked about earlier. Hypnosis, it turns out, and we're going to talk a lot more about that in the second part of our program, hypnosis is the most effective way to communicate with the mind-body system through interaction with the unconscious mind, utilizing imagery, suggestion, and metaphor. I think that's a bold statement, but I think it's a correct statement. Other ways of doing that is through meditation, visualization, but for me, hypnosis is the most powerful of those three things in order to try and influence the system, sending messages into the mind, to the cortex, into the limbic system, into the body, in a way that helps with healing, helps with relaxation, helps with regeneration of tissue. It can do all of those kinds of things. The endocrine system, that limbic system, as we said earlier, affects how the endocrine system operates. Endocrine system performs actions at a distance. That was where the adrenal glands can release cortisol or adrenaline into your system. It goes through your blood system and everything gets affected by it. It helps regulate growth and metabolism. It's composed of the pituitary, the pancreas, the pineal, the thyroid, adrenals, and the gonads. All your sex hormones, all your growth hormones are regulated in ways by the endocrine system. Neurosecretion is how that happens, how the neurons in the hypothalamus transduce neural information of the mind into hormonal messages to the body. So this is going on all the time, no matter what you're doing. This is a an ongoing process, even if you're sleeping. Everything's happening. Everything's doing this. And by learning about the mind-body system and learning some of the techniques, we hope you'll be able to start to influence that and generate more resources for yourself. This is just an example of that. The hypothalamus hits the anterior pituitary with a message that secretes adrenal corticotropic hormone that goes to the adrenal cortex, cortisol and adrenaline are released, and that takes place in a split second. The immune system. This is the system that helps fight infection, helps protect you from cancer, helps to keep you healthy. It defines what's me versus not me, meaning if something invades our body, it can recognize that this thing is not part of who you are and needs to be attacked or dealt with, and the immune system is the one that recognizes that. It creates antibodies, it fights infections and tumors. It has a recognition memory system, so it knows what belongs and doesn't, even though if there's changes made, and it guides tissue regeneration. Again, this is all controlled unconsciously. This is the immune system composition. You can see a lot of the lymph nodes in there. And lymph nodes are something, with cancer, we're very interested in. And so you can see that. I'm not going to spend much time on this, but just for your information, I wanted you to see how throughout your body, how your body is very, very involved in the lymphic system, in the lymphatic system, and the immune system. I'm going to skip this slide. It's just when something comes in from the outside, if you have an overreactive immune function, you have an allergy. If you have an underreactive, it can cause an infection. Something internal starts to happen, and your body mistakes yourself for something from the outside, and now you have what's called an autoimmune disease, and some people consider cancer an autoimmune disease. Meditation and visualization are also proven to be powerful resources in communicating with the mind, body, brain system. And I think that's it. That's a quick presentation on a very complex set of ideas. I think the thing that I want to be the takeaway for you is that there's things that's going on. There are things going on in you all the time in this mind-body connection. And the more you're aware of it, the more you understand it, the more you have some sense of how to manage it in a better way. Being more aware of it gives you a lot more choices than just kind of blindly going about on your day-to-day business. If you want to harness new resources in your body, a good knowledge of how that works for you is going to be pretty important. Okay, I think that wraps up the first part of our program, and now we're going to move to the second part of the program.